Hello, everybody. Welcome to UK CORRAL, the podcast that reviews every single UK comic ever written. I'm your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by Adamantium. All right. And of course, yeah, it never runs out. And of course, Nice Man. Thanks for joining us, Nice Man.
I can never compete with Adam's sound effects. Never.
Right. You have to come up with another gimmick. I don't have any gimmicks anyway. So this
your
week,
extreme generosity and gregariousness, I thought, was your gimmick.
there you go.
No, my gimmick is pretending that I'm nice.
You got us fooled. Okay, so this week we are talking about the comic that probably made me a fan of Garth Ennis. John Constantine, Hellblazer, right? This is his first storyline, known as Dangerous Habits, right?
That's right. And we should give a little background, I think, for readers who might know a bit about Hellblazer or the character John Constantine, but might be wondering, why are you pronouncing his name so weird? It's Constantine, and it's not. So it was very much dictated by Alan Moore, who created the character, that his name would be John Constantine, like turpentine. And he was based off of, and if you notice the similarity throughout the depictions of the character throughout various arcs of Hellblazer, from Sting of the Police, the new wave post-punk band. So you have this idea of him, particularly based off of a old B movie that Sting was in, where he played kind of a demonic force. I think it was called Brimstone and Treacle, or Treacle, something like that.
Treacle, yes.
I've never seen that. Interesting. Okay.
And so he started off as a bit player in Swamp Thing, one of my favorite Alan Moore series, and he became so popular that DC licensed him out to be an ongoing character and have his own series here in Hellblazer. And this isn't the first issue of Hellblazer. This is actually, I think, going on pretty, I don't want to say late in its run, but it's pretty substantial. It's up to issue 41 now.
41, yeah. So, I mean, relatively speaking, the series lasted 300 issues. So, yeah, this is well into the run for sure. And before this, it was done by Jamie Delano. And the issue right before this, because I checked, was it had art by, was it Dave McKean? And the art was... McKean did that, yeah. Yeah, it was excellent, excellent. This is now by Garth Ennis and Will Simpson, who I'm not overly familiar with. But we'll talk about the art later. And we have decided to, based on our millions of listeners' feedback, we've decided to revise our format a bit. And we're not going to summarize the issues page by page or panel by panel. We're just going to give a general summary of the issue, then review it, then go forward to the next issue. And that being said, Adamantium has offered to quickly summarize the first issue, which I will help you do by showing the pages here if you need it.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. Well, we are just opening up with John Constantine just reflecting upon some horrible news that he's dying. The big reveal of this is that Constantine has been diagnosed with lung cancer. And this is something that's been alluded to a little bit in previous issues because he's a habitual smoker. And he's had this affectation of this kind of cool, almost noir character who's constantly drinking and smoking. But as has been alluded to in previous issues, it seems to be catching up to him. And now he's officially diagnosed. And we have this incredible irony of this character who's been fighting demons and supernatural events, succumbing to this horrible disease, this infection. And now he's considering what he's going to do. He ends up having this encounter with a being, Astra, which is kind of a projection of his psyche, but also a type of supernatural entity where he's trying to engage with it and find out if there's an answer to him being able to survive this, if it's going to be a terminal cancer, if he will be able to live. And it's all ending in this horrible dream sequence where he ends up just realizing, no, there is no hope for me. I will not find resolution through this. So he's now desperately trying to seek means to cure himself of cancer, including entering into a cancer ward where he ends up talking to an older man. They share some notes, and Constantine decides at the end, well, I'm not just going to give up life. I'm going to fight. I'm going to do what I can. And the issue really ends with him just deciding that he's not going to die. Now, this brief summary doesn't do justice to the totality of this comic. And this is what I love so much about Garth Ennis's run on Hellblazer. Ennis is known for some very over-the-top stuff. I think anyone who's read Preacher or anyone who's read even his run on Hitman, which I like, Preacher not as much, I think they associate him with very bombastic, very crude, almost lewd sort of shock value imagery and events. But here we have this very human, very dark story of this person coming to grips with mortality. And this whole issue, there's no battle in it. This is not a superhero comic in a traditional sense. The battle is him coming to terms with whether or not he wants to fight to live. And the crux of the end of the issue is he decides ultimately, not from some heroics, but almost out of bitterness, screw this, I am going to live. And that's where the rest of the story is going to lead us. As you can tell by me talking about it, I'm very enthused about this issue and this run. This is one of my favorite comic arcs that I've read. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because it's one of the few that deals with, in such a fictionalized world, main character contracting a disease such as cancer and taking it with great gravity and seriousness, and the type of pathos that comes when I think a person is faced with something such as a terminal disease or this notion of their own mortality. It has a certain naked, blunt truth behind it that I'm not accustomed to in a lot of comics, whether they be fantastical superhero fare or if they tend to be quote unquote more slice of life realist stories. And yeah, my quick review of this issue. I can talk about the art quickly if anyone wants. I'll add on to other people's points, but I loved it all the way through.
I loved it too. And before I had read this, I associated Garth Ennis with, like you said, sort of just he had a reputation of being shocking and violent and this, that, and the other. And I might have read a few issues of Crossed. But for some reason, I had skipped most of his 90s output. And when I read this, even just the first issue, I was shocked at how good it was. And it really made me regret missing almost his entire 90s career when it was happening, because he has now become one of my absolute favorite writers. And now that I've reread this again, I think it's excellent. And I have a lot more to say about it, including about the art. But Paul, what's your impression of this first issue?
So I have to give some context.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. John Constantine was created by Alan Moore in Swamp Thing. Is that right?
Right.
Correct.
Because I have all Alan Moore Swamp Things. Oh, no, just about I do, I think. So I should really know that. And I've always been intrigued by this character. And I know that a movie was made, wasn't it, with Keanu Reeves?
And it was half decent, but he was miscast.
Mm. So, but I have, until this assignment, I have never read a Hellblazer.
Wow.
I have never read a John Constantine story. So why haven't I? And I realize that you asked me to comment on the issue we were just looking at, and I'm already not doing that. But I just want to give context. Because I don't like horror.
Mm.
And horror very, very boring. And as far as I knew, this would be horror. But of course, if the characterization is good, then it's all right. It doesn't matter what the genre is. If the characterization is good, you will follow it.
Mm-hmm.
So I found it very compelling. That's what the word that popped into my head when I was reading it. I was thinking, wow, this is very compelling. So I felt compelled to read it, which is a good thing, and I think a compliment to Garth Ennis's writing. I should also say that I love Garth Ennis's Punisher. For me, that is peak Punisher. It's the only worthwhile Punisher. That's the way to write Punisher. Endlessly entertaining, great stuff for me. But this, another description that came into my head when I was reading it was kitchen sink drama, which is not despair. That's the description, given to those British dramas of especially the 60s. Just morbid stuff happening over the kitchen sink.
Mm-hmm.
So is this morbid? Yes, I think this issue is morbid, but is it compelling? Yes, it is. And here we have John Constantine, I guess, demon slayer, if that's a fair description, who's being slayed by his own body. But then again, as somebody tells him later, well, it kind of serves you right for all the smoking that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So there is great drama here. There is a battle. It's not a superhero comic, but there absolutely is a battle, because the battle is taking place within Constantine. Not just the battle about the fact that he has cancer, but the battle about, does he have the spirit to rise up and challenge this biggest of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So for all those reasons, I found it very compelling. For the art, I was never quite sure about it. On some pages, I think, yeah, the art's good. On other pages, I think, nah, I'm not so sure about this. So the art had me kind of a little baffled from page to page, maybe even panel to panel. At times I thought, yeah, good. Other times I thought, no, I'm not so sure. So overall, that was my reaction to this first issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about the art. From issue to issue, it varied, and I'm assuming it's only because they switched inkers, because looking back now on the first chapter, I'm surprised how much I like it, and I can only assume it's because the inks are by Mark Pennington, and I'm going to see who's inking it throughout, because I'm assuming it's different people. But I love this opening page. This is perfect, right?
Yeah, I like it.
Right? And that's a good page. These are some good pages. But I think the reason the art is inconsistent is, I have to say, it might just be Will Simpson. His pencils are okay, but he's not the strongest penciler. And there's a weird, for example, this shot here of this, this psychiatrist or this doctor, it's not great. And there's also a lot of examples where he'll kind of have tangent lines and awkwardly placed figures. And I think it just shows that he's not the most dynamic artist. He might be fine at drawing faces, and this is the criticism I kind of have always had of Vertigo, is they're not great at action or body language. But, this page here, this looks great, right? Just that, the man looking at him, and then the shadows on the face, that stuff is good. It's just that overall, he has some awkward placement of figures sometimes that I think makes it look weak. Adam,
I agree. I think, go ahead, nice man.
How nice of you. I wonder who his artistic influences were, because there are times when I look at certain panels and I think, oh, that reminds me of artist A. Another time, oh, that reminds me of artist B. And another time, that reminds me of artist C. And then at other times, I think, oh, that's Will Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether you two found that as well, but different artist names popped into my head at different times regarding different panels, different pages, different issues.
I will concur with that. Yeah, I think one of them actually that comes to mind quite a bit, not so much achieving, but attempting to achieve, is Eisner. I see a lot of Eisnerisms in some of the facial expressions and faces, but it's inconsistent with that. Now, I do want to say, I don't think Simpson is the most consistent artist, and we're going to see this deviate throughout this run, even into the second issue. I think even by the time we reach the third page, we're going to see an example of a very stark contrast from a well-executed depiction of a face to a very bland one. But, in terms of the mood, I want to say this about Simpson. For depicting this very grotty, macabre, mood, this sense of degradation that Constantine's going through, I think it's very effective. It is I don't always like saying something is bleary or depressing looking as a positive, but when you want to match the tone of what the story is, it's very effective. And I do want to say, I think Simpson is one of the most important artists for Hellblazer and John Constantine in general. Because one thing I know that Garth Ennis wanted to do was step away from Constantine being this kind of fey cool rock star, looking really dapper with, the long trench coat, smoking a cigarette in the shadows. He didn't want those Bogartisms. He wanted him to be kind of a prick. He wanted him to appear a little bit like he's putting on an affectation. And so we see him here. His tie's not perfectly set up. He hasn't shaved. His hair's a little bit akimbo. He looks like someone who would maybe coif himself up and look like he could go to a club, but he's just lost all will to take care of himself. And I think at least in communicating that sort of grubby, unkempt nature of Constantine, that's what we're going to see maintained about his character as a form of visual characterization throughout the rest of his depiction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even this grotty scene where he's wearing his skivvies and he's throwing up, like, that is not a flattering image. That is grotesque. And yet, I think that grotesquerie adds to the sort of feel of this particular arc.
One thing I should mention is consistently throughout, I think one problem is the coloring. Honestly think the colorist, Tom Zucchio, he gets really lazy. Like, okay, this opening splash page is fine, but then we're going to do the whole page in shades of pink, kind of. And this is kind of like the days before the more sophisticated coloring that they use now. And to me, a lot of 80s and early 90s coloring just bordered on lazy. Like, to me, this whole page, green. It's green and beige, Is that the most effective way to color it? I don't necessarily agree. What do you think, Paul?
I think I probably agree 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
And yet, may I argue, isn't it sickening? Isn't there something almost putrefying about it? Isn't there something effective in that where you're almost feeling ill? And I think, at the very least, if we're talking about does he achieve a mood, and I'm not trying to defend everything about this run. I know, obviously, I'm a bit biased with it, but I think even the beige and the sort of, I guess you could say, monotone of the colors, it does give across the sense of this drabness, of being stuck, almost claustrophobic. I would argue, in a way, actually, it probably is effective, rather than being more vibrant with its colors, by, again, setting that tone. And if you go back a few pages, I just want to point out one part that I think is really effective for it, and it's when Constantine's having this kind of hallucinatory dream sequence where he's arguing with these figures from his past, and you have this page where it's the dark black background. All these figures who I know from reading previous Hellblazer and Swamp Thing arcs are all previous friends of Constantine's that he has either directly or indirectly been responsible for their deaths. It's all cast in this golden hue, almost like a sort of, I guess you could say, not even golden, almost like bronzen. It's a bit sickening, like tarnished gold. But as you go on, this complete black background with these opaque, like I said, almost like off bronze colored characters. We go to the next page. He wakes up and it's that cool blue coming in from the window, contrasting it. That sharp accentuation that we go from this dream hellscape to reality. I think there's something to that. And I don't know if other color palettes could have been chosen throughout. And I don't think I'm going to have this defense going on through the rest of the run. But here, I think it's very impactful for me to get this queasy, morbid, sickening feel of this man who himself is riddled with disease. I think there is something to that for this arc.
So, I mean, sorry, but it's definitely true, given the content. The colors can't be too vibrant. They can't. They have to kind of be somber to reflect things. But if I could speak for Mike, maybe, just maybe, this still could have been achieved, but in a bit more creative way. I don't know. I feel like I'm not a colorist, so I can't say, but I just think maybe, just maybe, there could have been something a bit more creative about it.
Yeah, and for example, on this page, keep the saturation low and give it a hazy kind of washed out look. That's fine. But for these panels up at the top, instead of making it blue against blue, make it natural colors, but today in 2025, you would put a blue like side light, right? Or you'd put a little bit of blue here and mix it a little bit. To me, it should be almost subconscious, the feeling of, oh, well, this was, the dream, and then this is the cold reality. But it shouldn't just be solid yellow and solid blue. I think that's what I'm thinking. It should be a little bit more subtle in the use of color.
Right, that's funny because I would look at this and I'd say, oh, it's nothing but subtle, and maybe that's part of the problem. But
yeah, well, I mean, it's a combination of slightly more primitive technology at the time, and it could have been that, or it could have been a choice, and we don't know really for sure, right?
yeah. Now, I will say when we get to the next issue, if you're worried I'm going to be defending this tooth and nail, there will be a few sequences of art I will be critical of, but we'll get into that when we get into, I guess, Hellblazer issue 42.
Okay, so I'll summarize this one quickly. And we're going to find out on the second page. It is Mark Pennington. Okay, same inker, no problem. So now in this issue, this is where Constantine decides to... Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does he usually work in the States or in the UK?
The Inca?
UK.
UK, okay. So in this issue, he's taking a boat to... What's so funny?
Oh, you're talking about the character.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I asked. Oh, you meant the inker?
No. John Constantine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wasn't because, just like Paul, I haven't read much Hellblazer, just scattered issues. But anyway, he decides to go to, where is he going again? Like, what's the name of the place?
Oh, he's going to Ireland.
Yeah, it's going to Ireland. It's the ferry from England to Ireland.
Well, yeah, okay. So there you go. So he goes to Ireland to visit an old friend of his. Oof, already just getting into this opening sequence, I love it. But basically, to make a long story short, he's visiting an old friend. I'm not sure if this is the character who's shown up before, but he comes inside and they chat a little bit and they start drinking. And the ultimate goal is that Constantine wants him to, basically he's there to get this guy to help him because this guy can do magic, right? And he's basically there to say, yeah, by the way, can you use your magic to help me? And the guy kind of laughs at him and says, funny, I was going to ask you the same thing because I've got cancer too. And they're like, oh shit, really? So then they decide, oh no, I don't think we've gotten to that yet, but what happens is he brings him down to like the sub-basement of this almost like castle, and they come across this little pool of holy water. And Hellblazer Constantine finds out that there's kind of like a magic spell that is maintained by the lighting of these candles on this kind of pentagram, and it turns this holy water into beer. Am I right?
A stout, yeah.
A stout, yeah. And so they decide, well, you're not going to be able to cure me, but hey, we might as well get drunk, right? So these two old friends get drunk together on this holy water stout, and then the guy kind of subtly is like, well, kind of reading between the lines, he's like, well, you know what, you take off, I'm going to stay here. And in between the lines, you kind of understand that he's accepted that he's going to die, and this is the last time John Constantine is going to see him. John Constantine walks up the stairs, and who's at the door but death, or a form of the devil. This is explained later that this is... Which version of the devil is this?
Well, it's basically Satan, the first of the fallen, and there's
Satan, yes.
different iterations within DC continuity and Vertigo about which devil is what,
Sure.
because there's like a dozen devils, but all you need to know for this run is this is the devil.
This is the devil. But specifically, it's Satan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
The biggest, baddest of all. Yeah, the ultimate. Yeah.
So he is here to take the soul of John Constantine's friend. But John Constantine obviously doesn't want his friend to go to hell. And so John Constantine, knowing that the devil is going to take him by midnight, I think he says, he's like, you know what, we got a little bit of time. Let's have a pint together. And so the devil's like, okay, fine, you want to? Takes a sip, and he's like, oh, it's quite good, splendid. So what's with so that's what the old fool was up to, eh? Magic stout. And then Constantine says, yep, the candles keep the spell going, you see. Stops the stout from changing back to holy water. Really? What? Look at that freaking shot. That's great art. And then Satan starts to keel over, and we assume his guts are rotting because he's just drank a sip of holy water. John Constantine takes a bottle, smashes it, and basically guts him here. This is a great sequence. Then smashes him across the face and basically looks like he rips his eyeballs out and knocks him into the pool of holy water. This sequence is great. And then he looks at his watch, and now it's past midnight. And he says, I did it, mate. Your ass is out of the fire, your soul too. Somewhere far away, there's a clink of glasses. And so John Constantine goes to the top of the hill, walks away, leaves his friend behind, whose soul he just saved from the devil. Holy moly, if the first chapter was good, this one's even better. Wow. I thought this issue was excellent. What'd you think, Paul? Or Adam? Or Paul? Whoever wants to talk first.
Let's go for a nice man first. I'll wax poetically about this for a while. I'd like to hear Paul's thoughts on this.
Well, we know that this is a journey that he's on, and the first issue is the setup of the terrible, plague of having cancer, and it's going to kill him, and then he gets it in him that he at least is going to not go down without a fight, so he has to consider what options he has. And of course, it's like a little checklist, right? Let me try this, let me try that. That immediately reminded me of Andy Kaufman. You remember the comedian? When he learned he had cancer, and then he went wherever he could go to find some miracle cure or something like that. And so here Constantine is, taking the ferry over to Ireland to visit an old friend. And like you said, the irony is that the old friend is in a big mess of his own, is going to die at midnight. So this is a good setup for Constantine for his spirit to not only rise to the challenge of trying to save his own life, but it can be strengthened by taking on the devil, no less. I mean, this is another analogy. This is a bit like England facing the Spanish Armada in the 1500s, and if it can overcome it, wow, who knows what might be accomplished. So here he is taking on the devil, and he uses his wits superbly. This is why he's John Constantine. And he cheats the devil out of the soul of his friend, and slices and dices the devil in the process. And as you say, whips him into the pool of holy water, which is, great. If you're going to beat the devil anywhere, great. Whip him to shreds and send him into a pool of holy water. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a great step forward from the first issue setup, and it makes us realize that we're on a journey with him, a journey to save his life, if it can be saved. There is a setback because this friend can't help him, but at the same time, his spirit is boosted because he saved his friend's soul and he defeated the devil. My one gripe would be this, and it's not a fair gripe, because this story has to go this way. But I can't help thinking, and this is reinforced later on as well, the devil, for being like the master of manipulation, the master of deceit, the master is not that bright. Really, he's not that bright. He's a little naive. And so, you want to have a drink? Yeah, sure, I'll have a drink with you. After all, not everyone gets to have a drink with the devil. All right, have you not been around the block a few times? Do you not know how these things work out? But that's an unfair gripe, because it's a great story, great characterization, and I really enjoyed it.
I'll say one thing, Adam, before you jump in. I do agree with your take on the devil. and there has to be a little bit of suspension of disbelief in order for this whole story to work.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind whether you believe in the devil or not, but the idea that he could be omnipotent. No, he can't be omniscient or omnipotent if he's going to be tricked this easily by John Constantine, right? But if you don't have that not low stakes, but that kind of more grounded devil, then you could not have a story like this. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, he could have said to Constantine, well, actually, no, I don't drink alcohol.
Right.
No, I'm not, I don't like beer. If he had been like red wine, maybe, but not beer. And suddenly, boom, Constantine's toast.
Right.
I do think this is part of what I do appreciate about Ennis's run. And again, I've been very critical about Garth Ennis in other discussions we've had, but when he's good, he's exceptional. And as much as he debases John Constantine throughout his run, to make him a lout, he's not a demon slayer, as was noted. He's more of a magical huckster. He's not a good magician, but he just knows enough to get by, to maybe avoid having to pay rent, sleeps around a little bit. He's a bit of a tramp. And I think that depiction comes to the ultimate fruition through Garth Ennis's writing. And I think it's a great corollary for what's happening with the devil, too. The devil is not some omnipotent, all-knowing evil entity. He's also someone who's just kind of a lout. What is he doing? He's collecting the soul of a drunken Irishman in the middle of the night. For what reason? Something to do. The devil himself doesn't seem to have high stakes, and I appreciate that. I think that makes everything feel a bit more grounded, no matter the fantastical elements that are going to be introduced into this. What is the soul of one drunken individual for the devil? Well, it's something to him, and I think that's pretty funny. I think it goes back to kind of old depictions of like the old John Scratch, that sort of devil that's making deals for individual souls. So there is a little bit of mythologizing happening there, but it's also showing the playing field here, that this isn't high stakes end of the world stuff, that this is everyone for their own vested interest. Even the fact that his friend manages to procure a deal with the devil just to make unlimited quantities of stout in and of itself is a hilarious concept.
Yeah.
And the fact that it ultimately leads to his soul not being part of this this acquisition for the devil, I think goes a long way to play at this prioritization of cleverness, wit, and what really saves John Constantine time and time again throughout his run is not even his abilities or his intelligence. It's pure luck. He just happens to have the right thing happen at the right time. And there are storylines that will go on further in the run of Hellblazer that shows what happens when the right thing doesn't happen at the right time, and shows what a mess up he is as a human being. But we see why he is this center of supernatural activity, that, as you said, he can trick the devil, and that he can get away with this and help his friend. And yet the bittersweetness of the very ending is that while his friend's soul is saved from eternal damnation, he's still dying of terminal cancer. And it's just such a powerful story. Like, if anyone was told to read one issue in this run, this is the issue absolutely to tell people to read. In fact, I picked up a stray issue of Hellblazer. This was the first issue I ever read of the series.
Wow.
And obviously I was hooked. I do want to talk about the art a little bit, because I do think it's diminishing returns. Because if we go to, I think it's the third page of this issue, I think Constantine's just coming back. That shot's great. I love him on the sea. But then I think it's the next page, perhaps. His face just seems very amateurishly illustrated.
Right here. Yeah, it's not great, right?
And
It's
even
just
the
sloppy.
truck driver's hands behind him, his fingers have seemed to have melded together like some sort of flippers. I think this particular panel maybe was rushed. There was something of an error and they had to redo it at a quick pace. I don't know. So yeah, I can be critical of the art too. It's not perfect, but I think when it's done its most effectively, it's very impactful. an example of my favorite piece in this whole issue was what you pointed out, Mike, that shit-eating grin that Constantine has when he's about to just lay into the devil with his alcohol bottle and kick him into the holy water. What a great facial expression. Yeah.
I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Where is it? Did I pass it? No, it's right here.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Yeah, that's excellent pencils and excellent inks. It's perfect. I love it. And even the devil's face here, his reaction is priceless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, I love this.
I do want to say one other thing. If people are wondering, oh, is this how the devil looks throughout the run of Hellblazer? No, the devil, like in a lot of mythologies in the series, will take on an appearance based upon who's seeing him or who's based upon what sort of contract he's going to collect. So the devil will have this sort of myriad of depictions and visages throughout the course of the run, which I appreciate from a mythological standpoint. But anyway, yeah, I love this issue. So we were introduced to a friend of Constantine's who unfortunately passes away, but we're going to be introduced to another supporting character in the next issue, issue 43.
Did you want anything else to say, Paul? You want to jump to the next one?
No, let's go.
All right. And Paul, you're going to tell us what happened in this one if you can remember. I will help you out, though, with the art.
Well, yeah, as long as I see the art. So now we're moving along in his journey to save himself. And he's still in Ireland, I believe. Is he still in Ireland? I don't want to get it wrong. Or has he gone back to England?
I believe he's still there, yeah.
I think he's still there. And just hanging out on a bench facing the sea when he's suddenly visited by somebody who, of course, is completely unfamiliar to me since I never read any Hellblazer before this. And later I realized that she's from she's from Hell. Is that right?
Yeah, so I do believe actually this is her first appearance in the series as well. So they kind of explain her continuity later, but yeah, she is essentially a demon.
That he's friendly with and vice versa. And they seem to appreciate and respect one another. And I think that, as he says, he thinks he's doomed, but her advice is to don't give up yet. Go and visit the snob. You gotta love these. I'm sorry. You gotta love these British Irish writers.
Mm-hmm.
They stick these things in there. It's all serious, and he's got cancer, and he's dying, and he's on a quest to maybe save his life. And who have I got to see? The snob. I mean, it's almost like comical. And he really, really has great disdain for the snob, whoever the snob is. But she seems to think that, the snob may be able to do it for him. And of course, this is not a term I hear very often in this country. Is it used in Canada much?
What? Snob? Well, absolutely, but
somewhat.
Not in this quite in this context, but you would say someone is a snob or they're snobby, definitely.
Right. Okay. Good. All right. So, but before he, kind of sucks it up and goes to visit the snob, he goes to visit the old guy who's dying in the hospital, that he's become friends with, and that's really good for the characterization because they play off of each other. You get to know the old guy more and more, and it's a good reflection on Constantine. You have to admire his sincerity, his authenticity, because this is the opposite of snob in his case. He's made friends with a dying guy and an old man who could easily be overlooked, but he isn't. So that's very good for the characterization. And then further on, when he finally, he's going off to the Cambridge Club, because this is a club populated by men who are graduates of Cambridge University, apparently. And, of course, there's stereotyping here because apparently everybody in here is a snobbish asshole. And I'm sure there are many people who graduated Cambridge and Oxford who are not snobby assholes. But anyway, in Garth Ennis's hands, they are. So he goes to see the snob, but the snob doesn't want to help him, has no interest in helping him. And I think Ennis uses it really to score some political points as well, because Constantine has an outburst that the snob represents like the ruling class. They make all the rules, and yet everybody else suffers because of these rules made by the ruling class. And I thought at that time, well, Garth, I know you're having Constantine visit the snob because it's another step on the journey. Will the snob be able to help him? The snob refuses to help him anyway, and you use it as in a bit of a contrived way to make another kind of like, what can we say, class warfare statement against the ruling classes as represented by the snob. Now, there's something I have overlooked, haven't I? Because what is it that he wants to show him in the paper? He's showing the snob something, isn't he? Because the snob is quite surprised.
I don't remember. Do you remember, Adam?
Yeah, so basically it's an unnamed debt that the snob owes to him. And, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention who the snob actually is. The angel Gabriel.
Oh, he is? You see, I didn't know that. I know his name is Gabriel, but I'm as thick as the devil. And
when you were mentioning the kind of class like criticism, it's there. That's a part of it, but it's also a kind of existential criticism of you create this world, you make us, and we can't do anything about it. It's also kind of like an existential cry of, you gods and angels make us, and we can't do anything. So it's kind of a twofold commentary. Yeah.
Yeah, so now that you mentioned that elevates it greatly for me, because that's a really nice touch to have the snob be Gabriel. And I love the part where Gabriel acknowledges all the debts that he owes Constantine for the help that Constantine has provided. But he said, but I don't have to care about that. We in the ruling class, yes, we're indebted, but we don't care. So I thought that was great because, that could happen in anybody's life where you could go to someone and say, yeah, but I did you all those favors before, and I helped you here, and I helped you there. And yes, you did, but I don't care. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh, really, that was a great line, because that kind of sums up the stereotype of the upper classes as well, that they know they are indebted to the lower classes in many ways, but they don't care. So yeah, very good touch. So anyway, he hasn't gotten anywhere with the snob. The snob is indebted to him. The snob doesn't care. The snob is not going to help him. So then he's out of there. And where is he going to go next, and what is he going to do? Please tell me if I've overlooked anything.
No, that's it, yeah.
The only thing I'll say about this issue, while I did like it, I barely remember what happened. And as we were going through it, I really don't remember this. So I'm not going to say whether it was better or worse than the last issue, but I certainly remembered the previous issue. It's more vivid in my memory, and it stuck out because this is the second time I've read this. I read it back in 2017, 18, and I definitely remembered those first two issues more than this one. That's all I'm going to say. The other thing I'll say is you'll notice it's a different inker. Now it's Malcolm Jones III.
Yeah, look how impressive that full-page art is.
Yeah, it's really good.
I thought this can't be the same artist.
It just shows how important an inker is. This stuff here is great. I believe he also inked some Sandman, right? In the early days, I think?
Yes, in the second run. And you're going to see, as much as I do think the inker makes a difference, as you said, Will Simpson, I think, is very effective for this run in conveying mood, but is wildly inconsistent. And
Hmm.
between this and the next issue we're going to talk about, well, we can address that when we're there, but it's almost as if another artist is working on the run. It's really incredible. Not necessarily in a great way, but really incredible to see that range.
Hmm.
But I think this works really well as coming down. We don't have the big comeuppance that John has against Satan as we did in the previous issue, but in this one we have a very more humane, introspective issue, one where he starts having this great relationship with this older patient who's also dying of cancer. You're getting this camaraderie between them, and you see character development in John, who's a very, how should I say, taciturn, very closed off character who's nothing but pithy comments and deflecting anything that could make him vulnerable, breaking down a little bit for this guy, subtly, but enough where they're seeing each other on one another's levels, and he's finding some camaraderie with his fellow cancer patient. But then, for me, the linchpin is that interaction with Gabriel. There's a few things that stand out to me about this run. The previous issue is one of them. The resolution we're going to come to is definitely one of them. That exchange for me, I think, was one of the better parts of this whole arc. As you said, Nice Man, if it was just pure political analogy, I think it would be a bit rote. I wouldn't say one-dimensional, but it wouldn't be that deep. But because you have that existential element laid on top with the narrative mythology of Constantine having made this some sort of pact or arrangement where an angel owes him a debt, it says a lot. So narratively, it sets up a lot to be engaged in and interested in, but just unpacking it for meaning and themes, there's a lot you can read into that exchange that I really appreciate. And the fact that it ends with John just basically pissing his night away because he's been so dejected and all he can do is basically drink to kind of temper the ills he's going through, I think says a lot. Yeah, I really enjoy this. I think that's going to be my broken record comment throughout this run. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course I did too. And also, I don't remember, is this the issue where we're first introduced to his friend in the hospital?
No.
Oh no, he appeared.
He appeared
even in the first issue.
Okay. But I do love that developing friendship with him. And as far as the art, I want to also point out, like, shots like this, right? That's incredible inking. And then on this page, this is now reminding me of Frank Miller's Dark Knight teamed up with
Yes.
Klaus Janson. This is right here, Klaus Janson.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And or down here.
On the last page, I swear there's a close-up which is almost identical to a close-up face in Dave Cockrum's X-Men in like issue, I think like 97, if I remember right.
Which panel?
The one you see the close-up on you see the eyes, the cheekbones, and part of the mouth.
This one?
That one. Yeah.
Okay.
And it sounds bizarre to say this because we're talking about a comic book from like 1975 or 76, but yeah, I thought, oh, I've seen that panel before. That's Dave Cockrum, X-Men, like 97.
Interesting. Okay, well, we might as well jump to the next one, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I believe, Adam, it's your turn, right?
Yeah. So we're barreling towards, even though this is just over the halfway point, pretty much the climax we're getting towards already, because now time has passed, an undisclosed amount of time, and we can see Constantine is even more worn. He's even more skeletal looking. He just looks emaciated. Obviously, the cancer has taken a toll on him. And now he's really trying to ruminate over what he's going to do. He reconnects and really tries to establish goodbyes with certain people that he knows. Cheryl, who is a recurring character, and a former Beau is someone that he goes to meet and has an engagement with. And Chaz, his kind of buddy who would be his driver or chauffeur for the first couple arcs of this series, is left a note and a wad of cash where Constantine is just basically giving him this, for him, a sentimental letter telling him, You just have to do what you need to go on. You'll be okay without me. Chin up, son, John. And throughout this, it seems like he's giving up. It seems like as he's going through this, he's just accepting his fate and just giving into the notion that he's going to have to fade into that dark night. He'll go with one final exchange with his friend, his elderly friend who is dying, and they rib each other, take the piss out of each other a little bit. But while they joke around and exchange some barbs of dark humor, there is something about that exchange that ignites an idea in John. And he realizes, no, I am the man who tricks the devil. I am not ashamed to die, but I can do something more. And so he hatches a plan. At the very end of the issue, you see him going through these rituals involving drawing pentagrams on the ground, lighting candles, and ultimately discussing some business with what appears to be possibly a demon or maybe even the devil. More on that in a little bit. Anyway, as the time goes on, it appears that he's conducting yet another ritual. What's happening? Why is he conducting the same ritual again? Well, we then cut to further on in the evening where John then appears to commit suicide by striking his wrist with a pair of unsheathed razor blades, at which we see this really ominous shot of a pair of bleeding feet lowering above his face, just slowly hovering above, as this person says, I bring you damnation. I know you're dying, Constantine. I want to watch. And this happens to be the devil, the one that he attacked earlier in the second issue of this arc, looking at him as it appears he's violently bleeding to death.
Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to point out before we say anything else, now the inking is done by a third person, Tom Sutton.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who I only know as an artist of, I believe, DC's Star Trek. And he was a decent artist, but kind of a little bit stiff. And I think, for example, in this issue, like this opening page is great. Wait.
Oh, that's still the previous issue.
Oh, I jumped to the, that's why it's great. I jumped to the wrong one. Okay, so yeah, the inking, this is the weakest inking so far. This is where it starts to get, honestly, kind of ugly. Like there's some, the thing about inking is, I'm not an inker or anything, but you can't just trace the lines. Like you're giving it weight and you're giving it character, but you can also lose some of the subtlety of the original art. And sometimes in this, like this is the case where, yes, the lines are correct, but somehow he's brought out the ugliness of this face and this face. Like the eyes are not quite looking at the right spot, I feel like, and there's a lot of moments, and this whole page is ugly. Like look at Constantine's face in every panel.
If you want ugly art, go on to the next sequence where he's talking to his friend in the hospital, and you'll see the depiction. Well, actually, it might be a little bit. There we are. Look at that. That old man has turned into some sort of possessed homunculi. I don't know what's occurred.
What's what I mean? Like, is it the pencils? Is it like his eyes are not aligned here? His eyes are wall-eyed here. Yeah, it's just. And again, well, with the inking, you're emphasizing different things with your line. And what's his name? Seems to be
Simpson?
inking Simpson. No, it's not Simpson. It's Tom Sutton.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Tom Sutton seems to be emphasizing like the ugliness and the harshness of all these faces. Like, look how harsh these lines are in Constantine's face, right? It doesn't look natural. It looks like too angular, and that looks just ugly. So I can't excuse it as a choice. I think it's just poorly done for the most part.
And, I want to say, I agree with you. I think this is the weakest art in the entire run that we've seen so far. And yet, let's go to that final page again, where we have the devil just hovering above him with that weird, sickening pink behind him. His wrist is just splurting blood. That is a great image, and that's one that's been referenced a lot for people referring to this particular story arc of Constantine. And it's just, again, you've mentioned this. It seems like Simpson maybe because of the inkers or maybe, independent of them, is so varied in what they're doing. It doesn't seem like it's the same artist. I don't know if it's even the type of body language itself, but Simpson's pencils seem to be stiffer in this one. They seem to be less fluid. And I will say again, if I'm just looking at what sets a mood, what sets a tone, is it effective? Yeah, I think the art's passable and projecting that effective mood, but it's not strong art. Which is a shame because I like where the story's going. We have this continuing arc where Constantine, he kind of affirms, oh, I'm going to live. Of course I want to live. And then he backtracks. Oh, I'm just going to die anyway. I might as well drink myself to death. Oh, but then I'm going to meet my friend. Maybe I should live. But I have cancer. And some people might grow annoyed by that back and forth quality of his indecisiveness or his approach to his mortality. But to me, that strikes me as fairly realistic for people who kind of are stricken with news about terminal illness. There is a lot of back and forth about, am I going to pursue treatment? Oh, what's the point? I don't know. I think there is something to that informs more of the characterization of Constantine than anything. But I will say also, this issue is a transitionary one. It's to set up what we're going to get for the climax. So in that way, it's very functional. It's probably the weakest issue of this entire 6-issue run. But yeah, with that said, the arc is not that spectacular. And I do think it more serves a point or a function rather than works better as a narrative thread, I guess, or as an independent narrative story. Yeah.
I'll say though, these last 2 pages, this page is great. With Constantine in the foreground, with the foot coming down, and then the hand in the foreground. Those are great. I actually don't think this last page is I'm not impressed by it. The way that the devil's kind of just floating there could have been done better. Constantine's position is very unsettled to me. The way that he's howling, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. I wish he was a little bit more subdued. I don't know. So it didn't really do it for me compared to the second last page. But anyway, Paul, what did you think of this issue?
So a few things. I think everything that happens in this issue had to happen. Mm-hmm. We have to have him go back and forth. We have to have him visit various people to say goodbye, accepting his fate, not accepting his fate. It can't just be one way or the other. If it's just goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Oh, you know what? I'll give it one last shot. I think that would be too cheap. And if it's like, no, I'm going to succeed, whatever it takes, then we lose the suspense. So I have to say, I also think it's kind of more realistic that way. So I think it's an entertaining issue, which is an odd thing to say about such grim goings on, but it is, I think, for the shifting characterization and again, we're on a kind of topsy-turvy odyssey. And we know it over the 5 issues. We're going to get to the climax of climaxes, but this was all necessary. Now with the art, this is, I almost think, what can I say? Because this is Tom Sutton. Tom Sutton has, by this point, and when was this, like 91, 92?
Yeah, 91, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he had worked mainly as an artist on zillions of titles, zillions. It's like, and to all different things. Like I first saw him when he penciled The Beast in Amazing Adventures, like Steve Englehart's first regular series.
Which I did not love, the art and that, but...
Right. But he also has done so many different things, like he did an issue of Master of Kung Fu. He did the Seeker 3000 thing with Dave Cockrum in Marvel Premiere, the Paladin in Marvel Premiere. I think he co-created him. So it's funny. And he did the first 8 issues of Warlock, with Roy Thomas, when Warlock first had the series. And so it's funny to hear you say, and I don't necessarily disagree about the inking. Is like, but this is Tom Sutton. This is not like Joe
Mm.
Smith brought in at the last minute or something off the street. This is Tom Sutton with extensive artistic credits. So that's a little surprising. Maybe it just wasn't a particularly good fit for Will Simpson. Additionally, we're covering 5 issues, and we have like 4 different inkers, at least 4 different inkers.
I know.
I think it's like, this is kind of bizarre. If you were Will Simpson, wouldn't you think, can you just get me one damn regular inker?
Mm-hmm.
I never know how my art's going to turn out from one issue to the next.
Well, the sad thing is at the time they were making this, they probably didn't realize how critically acclaimed and legendary this run would be. They were just trying to hit their deadlines. So they figured, well, what's his name is late this month, so we'll get the other guy to help him out or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Tom Sutton was in his, I think he was in his 50s by this point.
Mm.
To your point, I don't even want to say it's the inking that's necessarily responsible. I think a lot falls with the penciling. I think a lot of the issues I see with the art falls with stiffness of body language, and it's just varied. At this point, if this was maybe a more academic podcast, we would have done copious research before this, but I don't know how many other projects Will Simpson was signed to at this point, and if he was forced in some capacity to rush through this one. And I'm saying that in particular because when we get to the next issue with the climax of this series, what we're going to see, I think, is a drastic improvement and really Will Simpson having a chance to go wild with his pencils. But, I'll ask you that once we are done recapping that next issue.
Okay, so we'll jump to the next one, issue 45. This is basically the climax of the issue, and it's a very exciting one. Basically, we can pick up where we left off, and we see the devil floating above John Constantine. And as Adam pointed out, this is the same devil that only a few issues earlier, John Constantine had tricked into drinking the holy water stout, right? And then what ends up happening, and maybe longtime readers would have kind of known what was going on, but I took a little bit of, I had to read into this a little bit, but we find out that there's other demons, other versions or aspects of the devil involved. Just like in Catholic theology, there's the Holy Trinity, there's sort of 3 aspects of the devil. And they call them, what is it, the first of 3, second of 3, third of 3, right?
Yeah, and then they all have their respective sort of identities. So the one that Constantine had the encounter with initially, you could consider Satan. Then there's Azrael and Beelzebub.
Right. And so the devil he actually looks different than he did before, but he looks like a man, and he's kind of depicted the way Jesus did on the cross throughout this issue, right?
Very intentionally, yeah.
Right, yes. And then I'm trying to figure out which one's which. Beelzebub is the floating pink thing with the black kind of blobbiness around him.
Mr.
And then is it Azrael or Azazel?
I think it's, actually, let me double check that. It's Azrael. And that one, I think, is the Lord of Hell of many forms. So they're constantly shape-shifting. So it could be a little confounding when people first read it. I found it a little confusing the first few pages, trying to figure out what was happening. It's only because there is no set form. I think both Beelzebub and Satan are slowly changing their forms in this encounter. And yet that's contrasted with this quick shifting where every panel, Azrael is depicted as a different entity.
Mm-hmm. So here is the genius twist or the genius revelation of this issue, of this whole series, this whole storyline. We find out that John Constantine in the previous issue had sold his soul to all 3 aspects of the devil. And the reason this is a problem is because none of them are willing to negotiate. None of them are willing to compromise. They all absolutely insist that they own his soul. And so the entire issue consists of them kind of going back and forth and John Constantine playing them against each other. And it's all brilliant. It's all well done. And what ends up happening at the end is that John Constantine, whose wrist is still bleeding, right? At one point, he kind of he basically says, "Well, look, I'm gonna, basically finish the job." And so what he does is he tricks. Is this? I don't remember. Is this still the devil on this page I'm showing
Oh,
here?
yes.
Okay. So he tricks them into casting not casting a spell, but using their powers to save his soul and to cure his cancer. But the way that it's done is the most painful way imaginable, and that's the devil or Satan purposely does it that way. So they show this kind of grotesque sequence where he's going into his body and ripping the cancer out and regrowing John Constantine's body, and then John Constantine is reborn towards the end of the issue. And then after all that's done and he's kind of, everything's good, the cancer's gone, of course he lights up a cigarette. And then one of the devils is like, well, now I can't wait for you to die so I can have your soul. And he's like, excuse me. Remember, if I die, my soul is promised to everybody. So not only did he get cured of cancer, not only did he survive, but now these three have to fight to keep him alive because none of them want the other ones to have his soul.
Yeah.
And then he decides at the end, he's like, the thought comes out of nowhere like a bullet carved from madness. And for just an instant, I consider ignoring it and walking out of here. But then I remember I've got a reputation to maintain. Oh yeah, one other thing, fellas, up yours. And he gives him the finger. What an awesome ending. Holy shit, I love this issue. Like I said, this is the issue that made me a Garth Ennis fan for life. So, Adam, what do you think of this one?
It's brilliant. Previously we saw him use his wiles. Constantine used his wiles and luck to basically trick the devil so he could get his friend's soul saved from damnation. Here we're actually seeing him form a plan and seeing that he's a bit crafty, and yet still a bit of an idiot. Because as crafty as he is, that he's worked these three lords of hell to not be able to reconcile or have any sort of a compromise amongst each other. They're forced to keep him alive in perpetuity because otherwise they would engage in a civil war that would basically demolish hell, allow heaven possibly to infiltrate and take over. So there's some political machinations happening, which I appreciate. I like that there's that sequence where all the devils are pulled into the sort of interzone where they basically talk like politicians to each other. That was a great touch. And ultimately, the reason I say he's still an idiot is because, of course, they're going to cure him of cancer and make sure he's alive, but they didn't say anything about it being a painless process, and he is eviscerated, immolated, he is blown up, he's nothing but visceral gore at one image. It's like something from another hellish property. It's from Hellraiser, if anything. It's bloody disgusting and brilliant, and as we're going to see throughout the rest of the Hellblazer run, the devil said, yes, we have to keep you alive. We didn't say you'd have to enjoy living. So that's something else that's going to come into play. So no, this was brilliant. And there's some great psychological moments as well, where Constantine is fading from consciousness and he just hears a voice and he thinks, Mother, and then it fades away. And there's no implication of what could happen, what sort of relationship Constantine had with his parents. I don't even think at this point Constantine's parents were even brought up yet in his run. Anyway, with that said, between the art, where I think Simpson is probably an eclectic artist because he really is talented when he wants to do creative, weird stuff. And he goes to town in this one with all these weird bodily contortions and I guess you could say manipulations of all of these devilish entities. And the fact that John himself is just contorting, going into these ungodly sort of visages. This is obviously Simpson having the time of his life as an illustrator. While it's very morbid stuff, it's peppered with great dark humor and something where, as you said, Mike, that last sequence is iconic. There's many iconic sequences in this run for Hellblazer and for Vertigo comics in general, but him flipping off the devil is probably among the top 2 or 3 of them. So, yeah, this is easily one of the best issues of the entirety of the series, and maybe just falls a little bit short from the second issue in this run that we read as my favorite here. But yeah, just great grandstanding from John. If you needed an issue to say, who is this John Constantine character? This is the issue to show you.
Nice, man. What do you think?
Well, you two have said it all. I got nothing. You got nothing. Yeah, very, very good. It shows you. I mean, were either of you expecting this climax?
No, when I first read it in 2017, absolutely not. No. I mean, I could not have predicted this. Did you, Paul? Or Adam?
Well, Adam, yeah, because I'd never read Hellblazer before this assignment.
Well, I'm going to make one comparison because part of this run was the source material for that John Constantine film with, what's his name, our Lord and Savior there,
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. But, they really dropped the ball. Instead of having a very creative and imaginative and intelligent ending, they just went for a big punch up and a big blow up where there was kind of a permutation of this ending sequence for how John is able to avoid going to hell and having the devil take his soul, but it's nowhere near as intelligent or creative as what's happening here. And that's just the thing. When you have these Americanized Hollywood depictions, you're never going to have it as nuanced or intelligent as the source material. And because I saw that movie before ever reading an issue of Hellblazer, when that happened, I just thought, my God, this is a fantastic idea. Why didn't they adapt this? I was shocked because it's so brilliant. And I think I was apprehensive of getting into the series for a while because that John Constantine movie, it just felt average. It didn't feel good. I didn't get what all the hype was about this character. After I picked up the one issue I mentioned, that was that. And I pursued getting the rest of this run. And my God, I could not have asked for a more surprising, cathartic, and I think overall surprising ending.
Well, and I think it just shows Garth Ennis' genius. I mean, only he could think of this. It's brilliant, right? I gotta mention the suspension of disbelief because Nice Man mentioned how dumb, I believe it was you, he said how dumb the devil is, right?
Well, I was using hyperbole.
Sure. But in the previous issue, there's actually a moment where, 2 times, where Constantine, he calls the first devil, and then he actually waits a little bit. He's like, oh, I don't want them to pass each other. I don't obviously believe in the literal existence of any of these characters or the mechanics of how to do a seance or whatever it is he's doing. But the idea that Garth Ennis had him address this by being, I don't know if I call one and then I only wait 2 minutes and the next one might have, but it's just funny that he addressed that little, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to put someone on call waiting and they can still hear me talking when I'm on the line. I got to be careful here. Who knows what the mechanics are? But I just thought that was almost funny. Did you notice that, Adam?
Yeah, I did. I don't know. I thought it was quaint.
Yeah. It's just like whatever, It's kind of like Tarantino said about Exorcist. It only works if you're Catholic. The whole thing only works if you're Catholic. What if the ghost is Protestant? or the demon or whatever it is, or Muslim. It's just funny, just something to think about.
I mean, it is, yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with Tarantino's depiction of that, nor with a lot he says, but
no, me neither. Yeah.
Yeah. But with that said, I think this is a great conclusion and a climax. But the thing is, we're not done with Dangerous Habits because there's an epilogue.
Yes, let's get to that right now.
There's an epilogue. Oh, yeah, there is, I think.
Oh, yeah, and Nice Man, if you can remember it.
Remember it? I've already forgotten. There was an episode.
You forgot it existed.
Did I actually see this? Yeah, because it's the one with 4 Incas.
Mark Pennington, Mark McKenna, Kim DeMulder, and Stan Woch.
Can
Watch,
you
whatever.
imagine that? Oh, before we go on, though, Mike, I'd like to point out that Will Simpson drew many, many issues of your favorite comic book,
What's my favorite comic book?
Transformers.
Oh,
Oh, that's true. Yes.
okay. So he probably drew it after I left because I purposely dropped it when Bob Budiansky left, and then it was taken over by a British writer named, oh, was it Simon something?
Simon Furman, isn't it?
Yes, and then
Yes.
Will Simpson was probably the artist. So I'm surprised you know that, though.
Yeah, I made a deal with someone.
All right. And you know what's funny? Funny you should say that because I did not like that art on Transformers, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. So anyway, he's now I've really got to remember this. So he's saved his life. He's cured of cancer. He's become Captain Scarlet because he's indestructible now because the three devils have to keep him alive. So he should be able to celebrate. But instead, we just see him boozing away again. And it's funny, I really can't remember anything about this.
Well, Adam, maybe you can jump in.
Do you mind if because I can just give a quick summation.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so the epilogue is very much the denouement. So yeah, he's on a bender. He thought he was starting to celebrate, basically, like you said, having this immortality, and now he's realizing, oh man, I'm still just in these lousy hotels, just pissing the night away. I'm not really doing much of anything. And he goes out, in this drunken haze, and he runs into Kit, who will be a recurring character in the series. And Kit is someone who was a liaison of his friend who died earlier, if you remember Brendan, the man whose soul he saved.
Right.
Yes, so, they catch up a little bit. They exchange stories about their friend. And, Constantine's realizing he's being a very self-absorbed individual, that, throughout this entire time that he was going through these deals with the devils, he was only thinking of himself. And he needs to maybe start thinking about other people in his life because that's all that really matters. Well, this also coincides with Chaz, who was a recurring character. He finds Kit and Constantine inside a cafe, calls him a wanker, tells him to F off for giving him that note, and just says, I don't want to have anything to do with you ever again. This was basically Ennis's way of writing off Chaz because he did not like this character. He thought he was kind of like a cliche, like Cockney chauffeur. I think very reminiscent of a particular character from Thunderbirds, perhaps. Maybe an homage to that. Yeah. But Ennis didn't care for that. So this was a way of him to basically change the status quo. I'm going to get rid of characters I don't care about writing and just have characters who I do care about writing, which is why Kit, who we're introduced to, will become a recurring character. But through all of this and through Constantine just remembering all these different people that he's let down and that he hasn't thought about, he realizes Matt being the old man that he befriended in the cancer ward. And the rest of the issue really just ends with Matt's death, that he has a very violent death where he's coughing up this copious amount of blood that spatters the walls of his hospital ward. And Constantine is just in the rain. He is just realizing, what's the good of this saving my life if all I've done is still not been able to connect with people? I'm not human. Am I more of a monster than these devils that I encounter? To which he's reassured by Kit. He's not a monster. He has a connection. And she tells him about why she does want to be with John. She says, I'm a big girl, John. I can take my chances, even though he's trying to warn her away, saying, I'm cursed. I'm a horrible person. You're only going to encounter bad things with me. And we get this final shot of them in the rain together, set to a rendition of the Pogues' Rainy Night in Soho, a song I love that just follows through this mournful ending where these two characters find reconciliation and mutual loss. And it's very beautiful and poignant. For a comic that the previous issue ended with John flipping off the devil. What a tonal shift, and yet I love this. While that last issue ended with such a high note of victory for John. This is how Hellblazer runs. These moments of somber defeat and these bittersweet endings. And to me, this is why it needed an epilogue. Not only to introduce new characters and to emphasize that we're getting rid of old ones that didn't work, but to show this is the person John is, that he is a braggart, he is someone with a loud mouth, and he's also someone who's extremely damaged, and someone's recognizing that about him. I mean, not to get too sentimental, but when I saw this panel, as sensationalistic and as grotesque as Ennis's writing could be, people often forget that at his best, Ennis has a lot of heart in his writing. And I think this panel in of itself shows that. And yeah, I'm talking so much about it because I love it.
Even just the fact that he kind of realizes that he's forgotten about his friend in the hospital and has to run back to see him. Yeah, like you said, that's something I discovered even reading Crossed, is the humanity of the characters. It doesn't matter how shocking he is or how tough his characters are or any of that stuff. Yeah, there's always that humanity there and that human connection. It's great. I love this issue. The only thing I'll say is, we could talk about this more in a minute. The inconsistent inking might have sabotaged. Some of the art is great. Like, as I'm going through here, it's all good. In fact, this is some of the better art in the whole run. This inking right here on this page.
Looks like Stan Woch.
Okay. Yeah, it gets really good. But then this page, it's not horrible, but it's very off-brand. This does not like a John Constantine issue, right?
No, it's no. And there's that really bad kind of close-up of him coming up, isn't there?
Oh geez, what in the who in the hell is that? That's not
this
John
is
Constantine.
Like something from the Beano.
Right.
I think Gary Busey's more like it.
Yeah. But anyway, other than that, you're right. We needed this issue. I loved this epilogue.
But you noticed that Garth Ennis, he likes his main characters to have a very loyal, stand by your side, attractive girlfriend.
Yeah, he wants a My Girl Friday, that sort of, or his Gal Friday, that sort of character. It's a trope he uses. I'm not going to deny that.
The manic pixie dream girl.
Well, I will say this, at the very least, I like Kit's characterization, particularly because she's going to have characterization going on. I think this first introduction won't do justice to how important of a character she will be and how strong she's going to be in not putting up with John's bullshit as the series goes on. But yeah, there's a little bit of that tropey quality of the manic pixie dream girl, as you said, in this particular issue. But just the fact that you have these two damaged people trying to come together in this very, like I said, this very somber ending, I still really appreciate. And I'll say this, like, I love this run on Hellblazer. It's not flawless. Whether we look at the art or some story beats, it's not perfect, of course. But I think there's so much to be said here, so much heart and so much great characterization that it really stands for me as being one of the best supernatural comics I've ever read that honestly barely touches upon the supernatural for most of Ennis's run, which is a testament to how powerful his writing was in this sequence. I mean, this was why I was so let down by Preacher. And even Preacher had its moments where I enjoyed it, but I just felt it lacked the heart of this run. And I don't know if maybe this was partially DC mandating, no, this is a character we own. You can't do too many humiliating, denigrating things to him. He has to toe the line. So maybe he couldn't go as extreme as he would in later independent creator-owner works. I don't know. Sometimes I feel those parameters sometimes actually help certain authors from going too far into extremes. But regardless of the reason, this Hitman, and I know Nice Man keeps touting the Punisher run. It's also excellent. These are the core books, I think, of Ennis's entire bibliography.
I agree. It's funny, I did read the first volume of Preacher and I didn't love it, so I didn't continue. But I'm sure we'll get to it eventually on this podcast. as well as getting to Punisher. Absolutely. But I'm looking very forward to reading more Hellblazer, and at the very least completing the Garth Ennis run for sure. And then as far as
I will also say, without spoilers, it actually wraps up. You can read the entire arc, and it's a full story, so you don't have to worry about reading what came before or after. I just want to say that.
Excellent. I can't wait. Did you have anything else to say, Nice Man, about this epilogue?
Well, yeah, it was definitely needed. It was good. And again, I'd never read any Hellblazer before this, but it was good. It was worth reading. I'm just not, a horror fan, but as long as the characterization is good, then it's all right. Like Tomb of Dracula, was Marv Wolfman's best because he said he didn't like horror. Mm-hmm. So how am I going to write a horror comic? I don't like horror comics. So then he made Tomb of Dracula much more than a horror comic. And, Garth Ennis here, the main focus, as we can see, is on John Constantine. So it's not like there's no like horror for the sake of horror. And that's the winning quality, I think.
Well, I just want to add on to this because I was watching a documentary about a video game series. I'm saying this for those who may not know, but I'm sure it's pretty ubiquitous. The Silent Hill video game series is a well-known horror video game franchise, and it was really touted in its first early video games as being this sort of psychological horror rather than the splatter gore that it would digress into. But the gaming companies and these big overarching producers particularly found designers and directors who didn't like horror to helm these because they wanted to do something different and they wanted to see what would happen if someone who's not familiar or who doesn't even like horror would have to work within these parameters. And they ended up making these, whether you consider them good or not, certainly groundbreaking and very seminal pieces of art within that medium of video games. And I wonder if we could say that about other creators who maybe aren't comfortable or aren't part of like the horror oeuvre working within it, what they managed to do that's different from those who just follow the tropes and all the beats of those genres.
That's a great point. Well, I know that Nice Man doesn't like horror, but do you like superheroes? Because next episode, we're going to review some more Peter Milligan Batman. Okay?
Yeah. I just like good writing.
I was just making a joke.
And it was very effective.
Thank you. That's why everyone laughed. Anyway, so yeah, next week, 6 issues of Detective Comics by Peter Milligan. I remember being in like 50 issues, but apparently he only did 6 in a row, as well as some scattered ones after that. So we're going to review all 6. They've got some really good Michael Golden covers, and they're all standalone issues. So we'll do the same thing as this week. We'll go through each one, summarize quickly, review them, and it'll be lots of fun. So be sure to join us. I want to thank Nice Man for joining us.
One last thing.
Okay.
Since you mentioned Batman, coincidentally today, I have learned that in southeastern Turkey, there is a town or city named Batman.
Wow. Named after Batman?
No. It's a Turkish word.
Okay.
It just happens to be Batman. I was looking at the map of Turkey, and I saw southeast, down south, B-A-T-M-A. Wow. There's a place in Turkey called Batman. I really think they ought to have a statue of Batman there, don't you?
I do agree, yes. But is there a town there called Hellblazer? Probably not. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Nice Man. Thank you for joining us, Adamantium. You can find all our episodes at thecomicbooksyndicate.com or youtube.com. We're going to review every single comic ever written by UK writers, so it's going to be a long run, but stick around for it and it'll all be good, I'm sure.
Before you get to the last one.
We'll see. Unless you make a deal with the devil.
We'll make a deal with somebody, don't worry.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll make a deal. All right.
Okay, until the next time, see you later.